This is one of those videos that I am pretty nervous to make. I have been contemplating for like 2 years whether or not I should make this video, and I've been really hesitant to, but I really feel like I have to. My YouTube channel has been such an incredible outlet for me to express myself, and it's been really healing. Like, I've shared some very vulnerable things on my channel. And every time I do, and I'm really nervous and I'm like scared to put a video out, it always ends up being like one of my best decisions and a video that I'm most proud of, and a video that has really helped me heal, and it's been incredibly therapeutic, and it's also been the videos that are the most impactful to other people. I think it's one of the most healing and powerful things that we can do for ourselves and for each other is to share what we've been through. Because what's so fascinating is that you can share your experience, and somebody that hasn't even experienced that can still relate to it in a really deep and profound way. Like, you just never know the impact that sharing your own story might have on somebody else. I'm not in a place where telling this is gonna re-traumatize me. I'm ready to talk about this. I have considered talking about this for a long time. So I just don't want anybody to worry. I'm not like re-traumatizing myself. I will probably cry in this video. I might dissociate. I'm just kidding. But I really am doing this for my own healing, for my own like therapeutic reasons, and also because I really do feel like that's a big part of why I'm even on this planet at this time, is to share the painful things that I've gone through and just my life experiences, in the hopes that somebody can relate or find comfort or just not feel alone, because it can be so powerful to listen to somebody else's story. So I just wanted to put that out there. Obviously, as you could tell by the title, this video is going to be about my mom, who I've talked quite a bit about over the years on social media. I've talked about her on my channel. If you don't know, my mom passed away 14 years ago. Almost exactly, actually. I'm filming this the week of the anniversary of her death, which is crazy because I didn't plan it that way. She passed away when I was 17 from cancer. I have been hesitant to talk about what I'm gonna talk about today because this video is about my mom, but it really has a lot to do with my childhood and the way that my relationship with my mom has impacted me as a person and really into adulthood. The reason I've been hesitant to talk about this is because I'm not my mom's only child. I'm not her only family member. She has family, she has friends, and I've really gone back and forth with myself, like, is it even the right thing to get out here and share this with the world? Are people gonna be mad at me? Are they gonna be embarrassed? Because I'm gonna be honest, there's things that I'm gonna talk about in this video that really don't paint my mom in a very good light. So I wanna just make it very clear that like this is my own experience. Obviously, I don't know what it's like to be my siblings or other people in my mom's life. I don't know what their experience was like, but I do feel very confident that the relationship dynamic that her and I shared was vastly different than her relationship with anybody else. I really don't think anyone else experienced the type of relationship that I had with her. So if you are a close family member of mine, or if you were close to my mom, I guess I'm just gonna give a little bit of a trigger warning, and I'm gonna say that maybe you just might not even wanna watch this video. And if you do, and you're mad at me for this, or you hate me for saying these things and putting it on the internet, then I will take that. And that is okay. And I know what I'm like potentially getting myself into by making this video. This is just something that I have to do. And I hope you'll understand that, but I understand if you don't. Over the years, I have talked about my mom a lot on like my social media. Every year on like her birthday or the anniversary of her death, I always write like a tribute to her. If you've sort of been like following along, you have really only heard mainly about the really great things about my mom. And the reason for that is because, you know, I realize this now, but for the first 10 years that she had been gone, that she had passed away, I realize now that I had sort of like idealized a vision of her in my mind that wasn't actually true. Yes, there were really great things about her. All those things were true that I talk about. You know, my mom was passionate, she was funny, she was wise beyond her years, she was intuitive. She had a really amazing ability to connect with people. She was an amazing cook. She was so opinionated and convicted in her beliefs. Many of the things that I love most about her are traits that I have today, and I owe that to her in a lot of ways. I see so much of myself in her, the positive and the more challenging aspects. The way that I would speak about my mom publicly, you were really only getting one side of the story. I had this very delusional, like a distorted perception of what my childhood was actually like with her. And I think that happened because I was in denial for a decade. You know, I didn't want to admit to myself the things that weren't so great about her. And I didn't realize for a really long time the way that they were impacting me. So I think it was easy to dismiss those things. And I do also think too, like when somebody passes away, you do sort of forget about the bad times. You don't remember like all the fights you got into or the times they hurt your feelings. You know, you mainly are gonna remember the good times. I was remembering a version of my childhood that really wasn't true. It was partially true, but there was a really big part of the story that was missing. I do have a lot of like really great memories with my mom. We would have a lot of fun together. We spent a lot of time together. But my mom and I had a very codependent relationship. And one of the things that sticks out the most about what I remember about her was that she definitely had a very bad problem with anger. Even though she had like a lot of emotional intelligence, there was also something very immature about just like her emotional state. She didn't really know how to act in emotionally charged situations, and she was clearly very sensitive and emotional. The other thing that I remember about her is that she was incredibly unpredictable. You never knew what mood she was gonna be in. Her mood would change every day. Sometimes it would change a couple times a day. And when you're a child and you're in a situation that is really unpredictable, it feels really unsafe. And so you become hyper vigilant. You are like almost wired because of your environment to pay attention to like the smallest cues. You notice things like the way that their footsteps sound, the way that they breathe. I would be able to tell by the way that she sighed, or the tone of her voice, or the look in her face. One of the big ones was her footsteps. I would be able to tell right away what mood she was in. That's a very unsettling environment to be in because you're constantly on guard. You have to learn how to predict somebody's unpredictable behavior. I do feel like her unpredictable and like unstable, angry behavior was primarily projected onto me. One of the things that I remember most is that, let's say that like I made a mistake, or she found out that I did something that I wasn't supposed to do, or she just got mad about something on her own. She would never once come to me and be like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. It was just, she would become enraged, and then she would knock my door down and start screaming at me at the top of her lungs. And I'm talking about like, I'm a small child, she's in my face screaming at me, and I don't even know why she's mad because she hasn't actually explained that to me. Another thing about her that, I'm trying to not cry through the whole video. Another thing about her that I was really in denial about for a long time, she used to drink a lot. Like I remember her drinking like every day. And I don't know if she really did. I don't know if that's like accurate, but I remember her drinking a lot. And one thing about it is that she wasn't angry when she drank. So that was nice. But I remember her drinking made me incredibly uncomfortable. And as soon as I would see her start drinking, I would get really, really nervous and really, really anxious. Even though she wasn't angry when she drank, I just remember I hated it. I hated seeing her drink because I knew that she was intoxicated. Even from a young age, I knew that like she drinks that stuff and she starts to act different. She would be like talking different and her words would be kind of slurred and she was drunk. My dad worked a lot, and he was the more hands-off parent. My mom was incredibly authoritative over me. She was like a dictator. My childhood, I really don't remember a lot of my dad. I don't have bad memories of him at all. My mom was just so overbearing and so smothering, and I spent so much time with her that that's what I remember from my childhood. So anyways, she had anger issues. She was very unpredictable. She drank a lot. Another thing that I remember is that she did not respect personal boundaries with me. I had no privacy. Okay, and this has greatly affected me in my life because privacy is one of the things that I value most in life. I know that I'm an open book, but I'm actually very private. If I don't want you to know something about me, you're never gonna know it. There's a lot of information that I withhold from people, and it has been a journey for me to feel comfortable truly opening up to people. She was very overbearing when it came to anything that I did. I didn't really have any space to just like figure things out on my own. Like she was always hovering over me, trying to control my every move. There was no privacy. She was always like in my business and overbearing when it came to like my friendships. She would like call everybody's parents and like call my teachers, and it was just like, it was overwhelming. So I kind of want to give like some actual examples of just like things that I really experienced as a child, just to sort of like paint a picture of what my life was like. And this wasn't something that just happened once. Like this wasn't a one-off thing that would happen. This was how my childhood was ever since I can remember until she passed away. For example, I was a really, really bad student. I was basically like, I failed all my classes. I was a really bad student, which was really hard because I felt really stupid. Like it took a really bad toll on my self-esteem. I realize now that the reason I was such a poor student was because of what was going on at home. You know, my home life was so unpredictable and I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I couldn't focus. So how my day would go is I would wake up and immediately I'm paying attention for the signs. You know, what are her footsteps sound like? What mood is she in? There were many, many days that she was not in a good mood, so I would spend the whole morning getting screamed at by her. And she was really aggressive in the way that she would talk. She was very mean, and she would slam doors. She would slam my door and then come back a minute later and bust it down and scream at me more and then slam it again and then come back. So I would spend the whole morning like that. Then I would get to school and I would finally be like, okay, like I'm away from her now, I can calm down for a second, but then immediately the exhaustion would kick in because I was exhausted because I wasn't ever feeling safe in my own body. My nervous system was a mess. So as soon as I would get out of that environment, I would feel tired. So I really had a hard time focusing because I would just be so exhausted. And that would only be able to last for a little bit anyways, because I would spend the whole day at school watching the clock go by. And the closer it got time to go home, the uneasiness and the nervousness and the anxiety would come back because she would pick me up from school and I had no idea what mood she would be in. Maybe she's still mad from this morning, or maybe she was in a good mood this morning, but she might be pissed off when she picks me up. And as I would walk out to the car, I would immediately looking through the window, what is her facial expression? Is she looking at me? What's going on? I would open the door and I would be like, okay, be ready for anything. You don't know what's going to happen when you sit in this seat. And I would sit down and, whatever her mood was that day was whatever her mood was. So my grades were terrible. And because my grades were terrible, she would get mad at me. So I was always nervous about my grades. It was just this vicious cycle. And I was so just a nervous wreck all of the time. I mean, my whole childhood was spent in severe anxiety, walking on eggshells. And I wasn't able to label it back then I'm anxious. I just remember feeling uneasy, feeling nauseous all the time. I remember one time, it was my junior year of high school, I was failing English, which was my best subject. And my teacher was really nice. And she pulled me aside one day and was like, what's going on? Like, you haven't turned in your project. Like, you're failing everything, basically. And I didn't really tell her a lot of details, but I was just like, honestly, I fight with my mom a lot at home, and it's just making it really hard for me to get my work done. So she called my mom to talk to her about my grades. You know, I don't know what was wrong with my mom. I feel like she had to have had something like literally mentally wrong with her. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't even care to label it, but there was clearly something wrong. But the English teacher called my house, and she comes like back to me. She like found me after lunch and was like, hey, like, I just want to let you know that I talked to your mom, and I'm really kind of confused because I believe you that you say you guys are fighting a lot, but like, your mom said the most amazing things about you on the phone. Like, she was like praising you and just talking about how amazing you are. And she was like, it's just so strange, like, because you just told me that you guys really are like going at it. I go home that day and my mom is mad at this English teacher. And I'm like, and now at this point, I'm 16. I sort of was able to like put the pieces together, and I was able to sort of like spot my mom's bullshit, you know, at this point. She tells me that the English teacher called her and said that I'm very unique and I'm very creative and I march to the beat of my own drum, but I'm just not smart. That's what my mom told me that the English teacher said. And my mom told me that like she just kept calling me stupid and saying that I wasn't smart. The English teacher didn't say that. You know what I mean? Like, so what ended up happening was I said something negative about my mom. The teacher probably brought up to my mom, like, Kate said that you guys are arguing. So then my mom, because deep down, I think my mom knew that she was the problem, but she couldn't admit that to herself. So it's like she had to turn it around on the teacher. I know the teacher didn't say that I'm stupid, but I honestly think it's possible that my mom might have comprehended it that way. Like, something's not right up there. Like, she really maybe thought that the English teacher did call me stupid. So then she's like rallying for me. She's my cheerleader. She's on my team. She's smothering me with all this love. And it's like, dude, the English teacher never said I was stupid. Like, you're kind of saying that I'm stupid, you know? So that was sort of something that had happened, like, you know, when I was a little bit older. But going back to when I was really young, she was so unpredictable and so angry that basically, like, my home was like a war zone, and I never knew what her mood was going to be. She used to get really mad at me, and I would be able to hear it from a mile away. I would be able to hear her on the other side of the house. Something happened, she's mad at me, and now she's coming to hunt me down. So again, brace for impact. I don't feel safe. I'm scared. I don't know what I did wrong, but I am about to get screamed at for something that I apparently did wrong. She would bust my door down, get in my face, scream at me. She was really, really mean. Again, sorry if I repeat things. I have to like look at all the layers of it and just like explain what I'm seeing, because I'm back in my childhood as I tell these stories. She would scream at me like in my face and say like really mean things to me. And I remember the way that she used to look at me. She used to look at me like she hated me. And keep in mind, I'm like in second grade. You know, I'm 4, I'm 10, I'm 12, I'm 15. This is my life. And she would look at me with this rage in her face. Like, it was like disgust the way that she would look at me, and her eyes would be like possessed almost the way that she would look at me. It's like really, I feel bad because like I feel bad that I have to like paint her in a negative light, because I understand that like she was traumatized. You know, like people that are happy and healthy don't treat their children that way. I remember she used to get so mad at me that she would take like cups and like bowls of water and like dump them on me. Like throw water on me. And like, I don't even get emotional for me today. But like when I think about that stuff, because I go right back there. I remember like standing in my bedroom. I remember what my bed looks like. I remember the hoodie that I was wearing, you know, and like getting water thrown on me and being screamed at. And I would be having like a complete mental breakdown. Like I would be screaming and crying and just like so distraught. And I get so emotional when I think about it because it's like I look at like the younger version of myself and I'm just like, that's a little kid. You know, like I was a little child. Like what? A child doesn't deserve that. She used to get mad at me a lot when we would be like out in public because of the way that my environment was at home, I was very emotionally unstable, just like she was. She was just passing all this down onto me and I was slowly becoming her. And I think that that's why she would be so mean to me and get so mad, because she would project her own shit onto me. And then I started to become that person. I started to mirror her behaviors because it's what I was learning. And so then when I would act the way that she acted, I think that she probably saw in me all of the things that she couldn't stand about herself. I was a very emotionally unstable child. I would throw a lot of temper tantrums. In fact, I didn't stop throwing temper tantrums till I was about 27 years old, if I'm being honest, which is like embarrassing to say, but like I don't even give a fuck because I didn't know how to regulate my emotions and I would get so emotionally distraught. I would get so overwhelmed. So we would like be out in public. I have a memory. I remember being in a Kohl's parking lot one day and I was pretty young and I had started crying inside of the store and like causing a scene. And so she just got mad. All I remember is her grabbing my arm and dragging me across the parking lot while I was screaming and crying and she was screaming at the top of her lungs. And I remember, I can still see it, there was a woman standing by her car staring at us looking very concerned. But it was like a different time back then, you know, like nowadays, if you saw that, people would be like calling the police and stuff. She would like put me in the car and she would scream at me. And now I'm trapped inside of a car with you. I'm in the backseat trapped inside of a car and you have lost your damn mind and you're gonna drive? What? Like I realize now that my safety was majorly at risk. But like one of the things she used to do that like really traumatized me, she used to blast, when she would get mad at me, she would blast the radio as loud as it would go while simultaneously screaming at me. And it was like sensory overload. And again, I would have like a full-on mental breakdown. So the way that she would treat me was so extreme and it was so overwhelming to my nervous system and to my emotions. And because I didn't have I wasn't equipped with the tools, I was never taught and it was never modeled to me how to experience emotions in a healthy way, I would have these mental breakdowns. And I remember I wasn't obviously able to verbalize this at the time because I was a child, but I remember thinking in my head and feeling in my body, saying to myself, like, I think I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, I think I'm gonna like pass out. Like, I remember there were some times where it was so overwhelming where I would think to myself, like, I really feel like I'm just gonna stop breathing and like die. It literally felt like I was losing my sanity. I would scream and cry from like the depths of my soul. But one of the reasons why this was like so toxic, I'm not even exaggerating, okay? So she'd bust down my door, she'd scream at me, she'd throw water at me, she would call me names, she would swear at me. I literally lived in fear. I was afraid of her. I was frightened. I was scared. And I felt very unsafe. But what would happen is she would do that. And then literally 20 minutes later, an hour later, she would come back walking to my room and I already knew what was going to happen. I knew she was coming to apologize because I could tell by the way that her footsteps sounded. And so sure enough, she would open up the door really gently and she would stand in the doorway and she would say, every time, this is what she would say, I'm really sorry. I don't want to fight with you. You're my best friend. I love you so much. It's like, this was my life. Like 1 hour, it's chaos. The next hour, you're like love bombing me and smothering me. And that was my childhood. The thing is, Even though when she would treat me poorly, I would be scared and I would feel unsafe and I would hate her and I would be so angry at her, at the same time, I desperately needed to be soothed. And she's the one that would then 20 minutes later come and soothe me. So it was this really toxic dynamic because the person that was giving me love was also the person that was instilling fear into me. And it literally was like being a drug addict. I was like addicted to it. I was like addicted to her and this vicious cycle that we were in. That was my life. Every day from as early as I can remember until she died. That was just how she treated me. I sort of want to fast forward a little bit to then when my mom got diagnosed with cancer. So I was 15, and I will say, I will give her props that she made a lot of like really positive lifestyle changes once she got sick, which I'm sort of impressed she was even able to do. I don't remember ever really seeing her drink again once she got diagnosed with cancer. When she got sick, she immediately became like incredibly depressed. From the moment that she got diagnosed until the time that she died, she basically would affirm to herself day in and day out, I know I'm gonna die, I know I'm gonna die, this is gonna kill me. It's like, well, yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Like, if you're convinced you're gonna die from cancer, then that's the future that you're creating. You know, I realize that now. Like, she just had a really negative mindset, and I unfortunately adapted a lot of that. So I had really like negative beliefs about people, about life, about money, about everything. It has taken me years to like undo a lot of the subconscious like programming. I was homeschooled my senior year, which was the year that she ended up passing away. My dad had missed a lot of work from like the year before. When you have cancer, you're going to doctor's appointments all the time, and her doctor was like an hour away. So my dad missed a lot of work. So once I was homeschooled, he could go back to work, and then I was taking her to all of her doctor's appointments. So I would go to chemo with her, which is like not a fun experience if you've ever done that. You are there for like 8 hours and it's very exhausting. And then like after the person gets chemo, for like the few days afterwards, they're really sick, they feel terrible. So she always felt like shit. Here's the thing that like I remember about her that I love so much. So we would go to her chemo appointments, and you know, it's not like a fun place to be. But I remember that like whatever room my mom was in, there would just be like hysterical laughter coming from the room. Every single nurse that worked there was hanging out in her room, like shooting the shit, cracking up, because they loved her. That was the thing about my mom. She had the most amazing, magnetic personality that you fell in love with. She could connect with anyone. She was funny. She was young at heart. She was soulful. She was wise. But she also had these demons that really got projected onto me. I had a lot of fun with her. And I remember that like last 6 months when I would go to her doctor's appointment with her, we would sit there for hours and we would talk about life, and we would have these really deep discussions, and we would talk about God, and we would talk, you know, just about faith and spirituality. And I was only, you know, 17, right? Like I was young, but we would have these really deep conversations. She would talk about like, I'm gonna cry again. She used to tell me just like all of the dreams that like she had for me, and like the things that she hoped that I would do one day. And like, you know, she always used to ask me to like write a book one day because I always wanted to and I never did. I think that she had a lot of things that she wanted to do in life that she never did. She used to tell me about like her dreams of being a ballerina, her dreams of being an author, her dreams of being a journalist, like all of these things that she wanted to do that she never did. And I think that she took that with her to the end. Like, I think that she really regretted a lot of her life. I think she held a lot of resentment. And I think that it really troubled her and made her a very angry and miserable person. She did have this like spiritual, beautiful energy about her. She was a Pisces with a Cancer moon and a Pisces Mercury. I feel like I saw the best of her and I saw the worst of her. It's hard for me to like be mad at her because I feel like she was just very complex, very misunderstood, and I feel like she did not have the tools to be a healthy individual, and that's sad. So that's kind of like the first part of this video. I want to talk about the way that my relationship with her has impacted me the greatest, because it impacted me in many ways. I was a bad student, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I spent a lot of my life feeling very directionless, and she controlled my every move. And she did everything for me. Like, that's the thing. Even though she was crazy, she did everything for me. So when she was gone, I didn't really know how to operate on my own as an adult. And I realize now that, I spent my whole childhood in survival mode. Now as an adult, now she's gone. Now I feel even more lost, because at least I had you to guide me. Even though it was toxic and unhealthy, you were my protector. You were the dictator. You had authority over me, and now you're gone, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not even gonna get into it in this video, but I ended up, if you don't know, I ended up becoming a very bad alcoholic. I was addicted to drugs. I was in and out of rehab a few times throughout my 20s. It was bad, okay? It was bad. But the main way that my relationship with her has impacted me, and it's something I've had to work on extensively over the years, it's the impact that my relationship with her has had on my relationships. I definitely noticed the way that it impacts my friendships. Up until just recently, I had a really hard time being vulnerable, especially around other women. I could care for other women and I could be nurturing, but I was too afraid to ever open up and be vulnerable. I've just in the last year sort of like found friends and women in my life that I feel really safe to do that with, but it has greatly impacted my ability to be like in a romantic relationship. Relationships have been really hard for me. Once my mom had passed away, I basically found myself in a really vicious cycle of dating people who mirrored the type of dynamic that I had with my mother. So I associate, and it's something that, again, now I've really worked through it and I'm a lot better than I used to be, but for many, many years, I associated love with fear. And I also didn't trust anybody. My trust was deeply broken because there was such an unpredictability with my mom that I could not trust. There was no consistency. I never felt safe. My nervous system was never calm. So I would just date men that mirrored that. So I would date men that were either emotionally unavailable or very emotionally abusive. I dated one person that was physically abusive. I dated men who lied a lot, cheated a lot, betrayed me, used me, took advantage of me. And this sort of just went on for years. And some of these relationships would be like only 5 or 6 months, but they would be very volatile, very unhealthy. Some of these relationships were like situationships that went on for 3 years. That was a big thing. I constantly found myself falling for men that never would choose me. They would string me along and play games with me, but they would never choose me. I see now the way that it really just reflects the relationship dynamic that I had with my mom, because that is what felt comfortable to me, even though it was unsafe. It was all I knew. My brain at this point, my subconscious mind, was wired this way. So I didn't know what love looked like. I didn't know what healthy love looked like. So there was no way that I was going to end up in a normal relationship. I have broken a lot of the toxic cycles that I did have, and it has come as a result of a lot of healing. I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of inner work, and I'm very, very, very proud of myself for that, because holy shit, who I am today is not who I was 5 years ago. Like, it's night and day. In early 2020, I had stumbled upon the concept of attachment styles. Now, if you are not familiar with attachment styles, I cannot stress enough how much I recommend researching it, especially if you are somebody that struggles with relationships, if you have challenging relationships, if you notice the same sort of like unhealthy patterns in all your relationships. I do not like to identify with labels, but understanding what your attachment style is can literally change your relationships forever. Obviously, there's still a lot of inner work and like subconscious reprogramming that has to go into it. Like, just knowing your attachment style isn't gonna heal you, but oh my God, can it put things into perspective for you? I didn't need a professional or a psychiatrist or anyone to like tell me what my attachment style was. It was very, very obvious to me from the jump that I have a fearful avoidant attachment style, which is also referred to as a disorganized attachment style. And Fearful avoidant, they say, is like the most challenging attachment style because it takes the two insecure attachment styles, both anxious and avoidant, and it's like both of them put together. Go do your own research. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to teach anybody anything. I'm just telling you my own experience. But essentially, if you have a fearful avoidant attachment style, you associate love and connection with fear and unsafety. And it stems from having that really unpredictable childhood where your primary caregiver was both the source of love and nurturing, but also the source of fear and unsafety, right? And this causes a lot of issues and challenges in relationships into adulthood because you become very unpredictable in your relationships. You basically, if you're a fearful avoidant, you have this really like almost desperate desire for love and connection, but you simultaneously fear it like very extremely. You will like sway back and forth from being really, really anxiously attached to then being very dismissive and avoidant. You are like impulsive in relationships. You will run away from relationships and end them prematurely. You will test your partner to try and get like validation out of them or to see if they really care about you. You're hypervigilant, just like you were in childhood. So any slight change in like your partner's tone or a text message, the slightest shift in energy, you will then jump to conclusions and think, this person is abandoning me, this person is leaving me, this person is going to betray me. Because when you're a fearful avoidant, one of the core beliefs that is stored in your subconscious programming is that people will betray me and I cannot trust others. This is like an unconscious, subconscious thing. Anyway, so the reason I'm telling you guys this is because in early 2020, when I stumbled upon attachment styles, I will never forget it. It was this moment where everything for once in my entire life clicked in my head. Because what's really crazy is that even knowing how screwed up my childhood was with my mom, as I went through life and I found myself in these tumultuous, unhealthy relationships, and I found myself constantly having challenging relationships, it never made sense to me that it was stemming from my relationship with my mom. It had never crossed my mind, and I was confused. I couldn't help but think like, what is wrong with me? And never once did I think that like maybe this stems from my childhood. When it all clicked in my head, it was this light bulb moment where everything finally made sense. I could easily connect the dots and I realized, wow, like I understand why I am this way. I finally understand it and I see where it comes from. Like I can make perfect sense of it now. And again, I don't like to identify with labels. I don't like to go around and be like, I'm fearful avoidant, because I don't like to reaffirm that to myself. But being able to identify that to some degree really did give me this starting point where I was like, wow, I actually can make sense of this now. Like I understand why I am this way. And now that I understand it, now I can find the tools to fix it. Because if you're not aware of something, you can't change it. What was really unexpected and very challenging and one of the most bizarre sensations and feelings I've ever had was in that moment, it was instantly followed by this really extreme anger and rage that came from some deep place inside of me. And it came up to the surface, but I was so angry that I was calm. You know, when you're so angry that you just don't even react. And I remember I just broke down into tears and I was like saying out loud to my mom, you are the reason like why I'm so fucked up. I was so mad at her. And the reason I say that it was one of the most bizarre feelings I've ever had, I had never experienced feeling this anger for someone and I wanted to project this anger onto them, but they're dead. They're not here. There was nowhere for my anger to go. I so badly wanted to look her in the face and be like, you did this to me. Like, you're the reason why I can't be in a relationship. You're the reason why I'm constantly anxious. You're the reason why I'm terrified of people. You're the reason why I don't trust anybody. Like, you're the reason why I'm 28 years old and I still have mental fucking breakdowns. But then what also made it challenging was like simultaneously I was like, I also feel compassion and empathy for you because this isn't your fault. Like it's really not. Like you were traumatized. You had unresolved issues and you never learned how to work through those. So they got projected onto me, and like I have to be the one to like stop this. And it was also this eye-opening moment because that was one of the first times I ever realized that anger doesn't come from outside of us. Somebody might make you angry, but that anger lives inside of you, because for the first time I didn't have anybody to project the anger onto. I couldn't look her in the face and say fuck you like I wanted to, because she wasn't there. And I knew that like I have to forgive her. I have to learn how to heal. I have to find peace. Like I have to find acceptance. Otherwise, like I'm going to be like this forever. One of the reasons why that moment was like so like profound for me was because it was the first time ever in my life where like I finally knew and I actually believed that like none of this was my fault. I always felt like there was something wrong with me. And I always felt like I was broken. And it was the first time where I was like, wait a minute, like this actually wasn't my fault. Like I was just a little kid. I knew that it was my responsibility to heal. It's been a journey, and I have made a lot of progress. I still find that there are certain situations that kind of like flare it up again. Healing is a journey and it's not linear, and you might feel like you take 10 steps forward and then like way down the line something comes up and triggers you and you're like, whoa, I thought I had worked through this. And that's something that I've kind of been experiencing this past month. I've been getting triggered by like little things that normally don't trigger me. And I recognize that I'm doing like deeper healing of like the shit with my mom. Even though it's really challenging, I feel this time like I'm really on the verge of like a massive breakthrough where I think I'm like finally gonna heal some shit that's been really deep within me for a long time. And if it does come back up, I do feel like I will be capable to just like navigate it differently and not let the trigger like affect me as much, which is really exciting. And that's a story for another day that I'm not gonna even like share, just like my journey recently. But I needed to make this video for so many different reasons. Obviously for my own healing, and also because like I feel so much better like after talking about this and just getting this out there, because it's been weighing on my heart for so long. Obviously I wanted to make this, for anybody else that's maybe been in a similar situation. And I also just want to say, like, I know that we all know this. Like, I know that, the generation that we live in now and the world we live in now, we're so much more like transparent about trauma and healing. I just really want to say to like the parents out there, like, the way that you treat your child is going to follow them forever. When I say that, like, I have questioned so many times, like, if I will ever be able to be in like a healthy relationship. And like, it has fucked with me so much. I get very overwhelmed in relationships sometimes. And again, like, it's something I've worked on, but like, and I get better about it, but it's been so hard for me to have healthy relationships, both with women and with men. I've hurt a lot of people along the way because I wasn't able to treat them properly. I've been really self-destructive along the way. I've gotten myself into a lot of dangerous situations. The toll that it had taken on my self-esteem for so long, I really felt so unworthy of love my entire life. I became very sexually promiscuous when I was younger because I was just so desperate for validation and I was so desperate to be loved. Yeah, we can say that like a lot of things over the years compounded that caused me to behave a certain way, but it all stems from the relationship with my mom. I guess just to wrap this up, I do have the belief that the life that we are born into, we sort of choose it on a soul level. I do believe that even though we don't choose like the exact details, I think that there are certain lessons, certain dynamics, and certain experiences that our soul chooses to experience. And also some of it could be like, past life karma and stuff. I won't get too woo-woo in this video. But the thing is, like, I'm not ashamed of what I've been through. I don't hold any resentment towards my mom. I love her. I'm not gonna cry again. I probably will. I love her. I'm not mad at her. I know that like I was built for this. Like I was supposed to be the one to break the cycle. This is part of my purpose. Like I'm meant to overcome this. The reason why we have the trauma and the pain that we do is because we're meant to overcome it. It's not because we're just supposed to be broken and traumatized for the rest of our lives. I've learned throughout my own experience, I've learned being an astrologer that our greatest magic and our greatest power really is hidden in the pain. All of the amazing things that I have been able to do and the way that I, like show up to serve others, like being an astrologer and stuff and making these videos, like none of this would exist if it weren't for everything that I've been through. And I really do believe that I was put on this planet to, to serve others and to be like a healing force in people's lives. But I wouldn't be able to do any of that if I didn't go through all the trauma and all the pain that I went through. I think that wraps it up for this video. This is probably gonna be really long. So if you made it to the end, I just wanna say, like, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for listening and just like holding the space for me to do this, because like, I like needed to do this. Yeah, like I needed this. Thank you guys for watching. I love you, especially those of you that really made it to the end. Like, you're a real one. Leave a turtle emoji in the comment section. Anyways, I love you guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye.